So welcome everyone. My name is John Eckhart. I'm a professor in Wisconsin School of Business at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, and also editor-in-chief of the Entrepreneur Innovation Exchange. And this is part of a series on customer discovery that we've been doing, tied to the Startup Owner's Manual, a book by Steve Blank and Bob Dorf, two individuals who both have experience in investing and also building their own startup companies. And the main idea behind this book is that how startups should build themselves is different with how you manage innovation and new products in larger companies. And their book talks about a very detailed process on how to do it if you want to build a startup from scratch. And primary goal that they're after is to try and minimize money that people lose in this process and increase their ability to find product market fit and ultimately be able to grow a business successfully. And so today we're very lucky to have Jennifer Lane and Priyanka Jarh, who are both co-founders of Laquerus, and they'll tell you all about the business, but it's a very exciting a nail salon in studio here in Madison, Wisconsin, that they started right as they were kind of leaving their MBA program, essentially. And we'll talk about chapter. I'm going to look down for a second. Chapter 7 of the Startup Owner's Manual as part of our conversation. So welcome, Priyanka and Jennifer.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you. So let's just start with how this whole thing came to be. So how did you find each other, and how did you end up, in an MBA program and then leaving it, running Laquerus?
Okay, I can kick it off.
Start with Priyanka.
Yeah. So I am actually originally from Atlanta, Georgia. Jen is from upstate New York, and we met in business school at Wisconsin School of Business in 2015. Our prior lives sort of drove us to apply for the brand and product management program at the WSB, and so we ended up there. And, we worked together on a few class projects in school, and we became friends, obviously, also, and through the process. And then our final semester of the program, we had the opportunity to take an entrepreneurship class, the WAVE course with Dan Olszewski, which was an amazing class. And you had to have a business idea going into it. So Jen and I sort of put our heads together, and throughout our 2 years in school, we had the same experience when it came to beauty services. And we started talking about how when you move to a new city, you always want to try and find like your places, right? So you find your pharmacy, you find your grocery store. And for us specifically, not just women, but us in particular, we wanted to find our hair salon, our nail salon, etc. We were never fully happy with the offering in the nail category. So that got us thinking, what if there was a more experience-driven, approachable nail salon that was accessible to college students and young professionals in the downtown Madison area? And that got the wheels turning and got us into the class. And we iterated on the concept all throughout the semester, and ended up pitching to the WAVE board at the end. And the dream sort of became a reality for us pretty quickly when we won some seed money. And we raised another round of funding over the summer after we graduated in 2017. And here we are. We are now Madison's only waterless and non-toxic nail studio. And we won Best Nail Salon by Madison Magazine for the year 2020.
Wow, congratulations. It's actually quite competitive and quite an accomplishment to, be top in any business type category in that magazine. So congratulations. And Jennifer, what is this WAVE board presentation? It sounds like, it was kind of a big moment for you because it led to some outside funding.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a Shark Tank style presentation. And for us, we had started the course and we'd actually gotten some not so great feedback from the WAVE board in the beginning of the class. So for us going into this final presentation, our mission, or sort of what we wanted to achieve, was to turn the non-believers from earlier in the semester into believers. And we leveraged a lot of our credit hours to put together this presentation. So I was working in a entrepreneurial finance course. Priyanka was doing an independent study in marketing. So we were able to really spend a lot of time on this project. And the more we worked on it, the more we believed in it. But getting winning essentially that pitch competition and funding for us was just a huge vote of confidence to have a unbiased third party and parties, multiple people involved that said, hey, this is a good idea. This isn't just your passion project. This makes sense. So that was when, after having being awarded that, we really were able to, we looked at each other and we were like, yeah, this is great. We're right. And inspired us to, keep going.
Well, the WAVE program that you're referring to in the board is known as the Weiner Applied Ventures in Entrepreneurship program here at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. We don't really have legitimate surfing here in Wisconsin, at least not from ocean waves, but we can try and still have some kind of tie to it somehow. The program involves these external mentors and advisors who also, in this case, they provide some assessment and recommendations to the program that also has a venture fund funded by basically the same people to help kick off student entrepreneurs. And I think it's great that you folks really maximize that opportunity and didn't let that initial skepticism stop you. And one of the things that just coming out of your narrative here is that I, as a professor at a school, really do find that the students that are picking up on a real project while they're in school and kind of leveraging the credits in the way that Jennifer, you described here, those are the students that learn a ton. And I would say, maybe very few of them, maybe 5% or less, actually launch with the business that they're working on while they were in school. Many of them are dropping them. But if they're seriously pursuing a business as they're kind of navigating through the school, they get way more intellectually out of the program. And it often leads to another business that they'll start 24 months later or something. So, but congrats to you for getting all the pieces together and launching. Now, it sounds like you glossed over a little bit that I'd like to dive into, which is that, MBA students, a lot of them are probably your peers who are going on sort of a professional track, securing high salaries as they were kind of graduating and perks and signing bonuses. And did you have any doubts? Did you ask yourself, what are we doing here starting a nail salon when, we're not going to, go down this path that our friends are doing with all the benefits that come from that?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's definitely interesting to introduce yourself to someone and say, I own a nail salon locally and I have no background in cosmetology at all. So we're marketing and business people by trade. And we had both accepted job offers. Mine was in Denver and Priyanka's was in Chicago. So we were not planning on staying in Madison. And ultimately, there were many reasons why we decided to forego those job offers, but I'd say the biggest factor was having this feeling of regret had we not done it. There's some quote probably by someone very famous that I'm going to butcher that's it's more often that you regret the things you didn't do than the things you did in life. So once we were kind of down the path and we really were at a crossroads in July of 17. We'd graduated. We were still working on this business, but also hadn't yet told our companies that we weren't going to be joining them in the fall. And that was what it came down to, was this: I don't want to be sitting at my desk job 3 years from now and see some other company or some lookalike and feel like that could have been us.
So you had these offers in hand. And so it was even a little bit more of a bigger decision because it was right there for you. And Priyanka, do you have any thoughts to add to this?
She put it perfectly, actually. We had many conversations, and I'm not ashamed to say there were tears involved at some point as well, because again, you're not only saying to a stranger, I own one nail salon in Madison, Wisconsin. It's convincing our parents too, the people that had supported us, our families supported us through business school, and were excited to see us venture out into the world and actually, start our future careers. And we come to them with, this is what we want to do. But it wasn't just we want to do it. It's we've proven that we can. And I think for them, seeing that outside validation as well from the Wave board was a huge vote of confidence, as Jen put it. So,
and Jen, you also mentioned that, one of the doubts was that here you are diving into this industry and you've no experience in this industry. And what are your thoughts on that? Like, why did you feel like it was okay to do that? And how do you think about like expertise as it relates to businesses that entrepreneurs start?
Back at my former job as a social media marketer in Boston, I remember there was a massive reorg, and I wound up reporting to someone who had no experience with my type of role. And I was kind of naive and, for lack of a better term, complaining to someone about this person being my new manager. And that person looked at me and said, do you think that just because she hasn't had your exact job, she can't teach you new things and get the most out of you and be a good manager to you? And I was probably 24 or 25 years old, and I was a little stumped by that question. But it does really resonate with me. I think, yes, we didn't have the experience. We have not sat, now Priyanka has, which we'll get into, but we haven't exactly sat on the other side of the manicure table. But we lead with empathy, and we've done our research and we've done our due diligence. We didn't go in with the mentality of, we'll just hire people who know how to do that. We went in with the mentality of, we are going to learn absolutely as much as we can and bring our experience as a client, as a business person, as a marketer. And, we've both worked in customer service too. I think that was a huge piece, retail service type jobs. And that's, for us, the client experience had always been the focus. So if we felt if we could lead with the client experience emphasis, we could figure out the technique piece along the way.
Priyanka, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting to look at like the construct of a larger corporation where they hire subject matter experts in various areas, right? But when you are launching your own business, you have to be the subject matter expert on all areas of that business, at least in the beginning. And so we really did arm ourselves with knowledge, and we read a lot. We researched a ton on the industry. Jen alluded to this already, but I went to manicuring school because we thought that it was important, because neither of us had previous experience. It was super important for us to learn at least the right from wrong and understand what are they teaching in these schools. If we're going to hire straight out of nail school or cosmetology school, what is it that they're learning now, and what is it that they need to learn from us when they join the team? So I have sat behind the manicuring table, and so I know what it's like to actually go through that whole process and have a client interaction. And Jen, we recently launched a new service as well, eyelash extensions, and Jen went through that entire certification process too. So now we're not just owners. Now we are subject matter experts in at least 2 of the 3 service offerings that we provide.
How long did it take to go through the school?
Manicuring was a semester, so it was 15 weeks.
Wow.
And if I had it my way, it would be probably a year-long program, because it's a lot.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Okay. One of the things that I think around kind of the expertise around the entrepreneurship space is that no one person has the ability to know all the things that one must know to run a business, right? The CEO of a company doesn't know how to do everything, and that's how they became the CEO, right? Of like even IBM or a company like that. And so entrepreneurship really comes down to having a passion to solve a problem and the ability to convince people to join you or to learn what you need to learn along the way to kind of execute. And in the extreme version of it, one can know nothing about about anything about the business that you're starting, but you want to address that problem. And maybe that explains like the Elon Musks of the world that are, rockets and cars and payment platforms. It's not like, anyone can know all that you need to know about all those different businesses when you're starting them. And I think it's really exciting and encouraging aspect of entrepreneurship that's the nature of the world as it is. So give us like the Laquerus pitch. Like if you're trying to acquire a new customer, or you're talking to someone and you're saying like, hey, come on down to Laquerus, convince us to come.
Sure.
I don't know which one of you want to take that, or like you could maybe you sing a song together, or like a jingle. I don't know.
Right. We'll get there. It's a bummer that we haven't got the jingle together yet, but essentially, when we sought out to build this nail studio, we wanted a place that was a quote unquote middle ground between your corner nail salon, where it's oftentimes cash only, they're very low technology, maybe not the best at customer service or walk-in only, versus a high-end spa where you're getting granted a very luxurious experience, but you're paying a lot of money. So we wanted to be a modern, stylish, customer-focused nail studio that is, not completely going to, that you can afford or that you can justify visiting once every 2 weeks. The waterless and non-toxic piece was not an initial part of our business plan, but have become such an important pillar to the way that we do services and the way that we present ourselves. We have a pretty stringent qualification process for the types of products that we have within our manicure services and on our retail shelf. And the waterless piece is more hygienic for the client, for the artist, and also more environmentally friendly. So all of those things, once we kind of got in and, we're starting to look at our vendors, we realized that there was a better way to do this type of nail service. And we really wanted to modernize the experience that we were seeing most often. So those are the reasons why someone might want to visit versus the place that they're used to.
Right. And there's, in your business, there really is quite a jump from, trying to figure out like, is this a market where people might want to buy your products and services as you've conceptualized it, and then actually being able to try it out because there's a store you got to build. This is very different from a SaaS service or kind of online software thing where you can kind of slowly learn into it and increase your costs along the way. And this chapter in the book is really about customer validation, which typically comes after kind of the customer discovery stage. So how did you, in your case, go from like customer discovery to validation? What do those early stages look like, and how did that change over time when you're trying to assess the validity of this market? Maybe I'll turn to Priyanka.
Yeah. So in terms of customer validation, this process sort of started in the WAVE class, where we knew what the pain points were for us, the two of us. But we needed to validate that those were in fact the pain points that everyone is experiencing when they go to the nail salon. So we set out to host a ton of focus groups. We sent out surveys, and the questions that we asked were basically, what are your pet peeves when it comes to getting your nails done? And the responses that we got sort of fueled the way we model our business and the way we operate as a nail studio. So one of those things is the pet peeve was whenever I make an appointment, I always end up having to wait. And so for us, we were like, no wait times. Like we're gonna have it so that someone books an appointment, they show up and they get seen on time. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that, give or take a few instances. But, that was one of those customer problems that we sought out to solve. Jen, is there something else that I'm?
Well, the early conversations were much more hypothetical, in the sense of, if you could build your dream nail salon, or if you could build your dream experience, what would it be like? You know, those kind of really open-ended questions. How would you tip your artist? How would you do this? How would you book an appointment? Who would you talk to? Would you talk to no one? Would you pick up the phone? Would you email? Would you send an Instagram message? So I think those are the best types of customer research to do early on. But of course, when it comes time to actually implementing those types of like pie in the sky ideas that your potential clients have, you need to make a lot of sacrifices along the way. So then we got to a place where we needed to look at what was most important to the market as a whole. And for us, one of those key pieces, because we are right on UW-Madison campus, and college is a very social time for everyone. You know, it's that time in your life when you have more than one roommate, and you go to the dining hall with a group of people, and you go to the gym with a couple people. Something that was really important to our clients, and ultimately to us, was the ability to easily book an appointment with a friend, be able to sit next to each other, be able to accommodate these groups. We've hosted sorority type of events. We've hosted bachelorette type of events. We've hosted all sorts of group appointments. So like, that's an example of something that is just, the socialization factor is not a focus of other nail studios or salons. And that's how we built our studio, and comes into like the operational format of what we do. So those types of things we validated once we were able to narrow down a list of what was most important to us.
And then talk us, through that moment where you felt, okay, like, we're going to open a store. What in your data before that gave you the confidence to do that?
Honestly, a huge piece was the lack of competition in the particular market that we are looking at. When we're able to expand and go to a different market, there, I'm sure, will be a whole nother host of issues. But for us, when you think about the undergraduate and graduate student population, which is primarily on foot or on moped, there are just not a lot of nail salons within walking distance. So the sheer lack of competition for us was a huge vote of confidence to say, okay, if we're competing against like no one right now, we need to be good. We want to be good. We want to be the best. But it certainly helps your business if there's not a lot of people in close proximity that are doing the same thing that you do. So that was huge for us, having that lack of physical competition. But also just general, like, national level statistics. Most recently, our pitch deck says that 38 million Americans visit a salon at least quarterly. So if you extrapolate that out, it's between 11 and 12% of the population. They're visiting 4 times a year. Our average price point per visit is about $56. You start to think through, okay, well, what if we only focused on the undergraduate population and had those 12% visit us even 3 times a year, assuming that they're going to be home on a school break or something? You're like, there's a lot of money to be made here, and there's a lot of people that we can capture.
And that's great. And so in this chapter, there are 3 kind of big questions that, are kind of the focus of the chapter. And then, Blank and Dorf have their kind of approach towards answering them. But I thought I'd ask you folks, like, how did you answer them yourselves? And I'll read them so that, and the first one is, have we found product market fit? The second, who are our customers and how do we reach them? We talked a little bit about that with college students as a potential group to focus on. And can we make money and grow the company? So those 3 big questions. Priyanka, how did you answer those, or are you still answering them?
Yeah, I mean, we're still answering them. But I think for, to actually say to ourselves, yes, we're going to do this, we needed to know that there was product market fit. And a lot of that came, again, from the research that we did in the WAVE class. We talked to, at that time, our primary target was college students. That has since now sort of changed a little bit. They're still a target of ours, but they're not the number one target. So at the time, college students were our number one target. And for us, it was a combination of going through those focus groups and sending out those surveys and getting resounding positive feedback and excitement over, can't wait to visit when you guys open. That plus the fact that there was no competition, not just no nail salon within walking distance of campus, but no healthy alternative to these beauty services. So we were sort of, in our heads, we were thinking, okay, great, we've got two unique distinguishers about us. And so for us, that was I think that was probably the biggest takeaway, that to say to ourselves, we've got product market fit here. Also, after we opened, the fact that we were operating off of a wait list and now still are, that really for us validated at that point, we nailed it, pun intended. But yeah, I mean, we're operating off of a wait list. Demand was through the roof. And then for us at that point, supply was the most pressing issue, getting those nail artists to come work for us so that we could meet demand. So that's the answer to the first one.
All right. Jen, do you want to take the second one, which is who are our customers and how do we reach them?
Yeah. So our customers are primarily, we've got young professionals that live in the downtown area. We've got students, undergraduate and graduate. And then we've also got, we have young moms, and oftentimes they bring their friends, or not their friends, their kids. And some of that is the non-toxic piece. If you are a new mother or if you're pregnant or have young children, you want to bring them to a space where you're okay with putting this type of polish on your 4-year-old kid. And you can feel comfortable throughout your pregnancy coming to a place like this where we're not using those harsh chemicals. So those are our primary customers these days. When we first launched or opened in June of 18, we did a handful of Facebook advertisements, not too many, but spent a few $100s on opening advertising expense. And that was how we got our initial client set. From there, we haven't spent any money on advertising. So our customer acquisition cost is less than $1 these days. And we're not really spending a ton of money on marketing. So we've been very lucky in that regard. We have found, because the first time you visit Laquerus, you fill out a form on the front and back of this form that has a handful of questions: who you are, how you like your nails shaped, how did you hear about us? And we found that the 3 most common answers in terms of how people have heard about us are a friend who had visited Laquerus previously, walked by, meaning just someone who's on the street who noticed us, and Instagram. So we keep up to date with our Instagram content. We publish a lot of photos of the type of work that we do. Again, very limited paid advertising, but we're doing organic content there. But other than that, just because of where we are and because of the foot traffic we have a very brightly colored storefront, and we have window lettering that explicitly says what we do. We have a really modern, sort of fun wallpaper, and it attracts the customer's eyes.
Yeah, I feel like what you folks are doing is a perfect fit for Instagram, because it's really, Instagram is a great way. It's a beautiful platform. It's a great way of showing artistic images and everything else. And you're producing like beautiful pictures of the studio and the nails that you're doing, and it looks kind of really pops on that platform, I think.
Thank you.
So the third question is, can we make money and grow the company? Priyanka.
The answer to that is yes. But we're still, working through how we can make more of an impact in that area, I should say. So you can absolutely make money. And Jen talked about this earlier. When you really extrapolate sort of the number of people that get nail services done in the US, that like percentage of the population, there is real money to be captured there. And then now that we offer more services, that number is even larger. So yes, the money is there to be made. It's for us specifically, it's about maximizing capacity and meeting demand with the supply of nail artists. And that's really, it's just simple math at that point is, can we meet customer demand? So yes, we can make money. We are making money, and we can grow the business because we have already explored sort of expanding and scaling to new cities. And that's happened towards the end of 2019 and early 2020. And then COVID hit and sort of slowed things down for us. But we know that there is interest there. So it's something that we're hoping to pick back up later this year.
So in your business, it sounds like, you open up the store, and if we're covering our costs, so then that was our proof in the pudding, basically, is that or the proof is in the pudding, it's really working. Was that, when did that happen for you? Was it like the first month where you realized, hey, we're going to cover the rent this month? Or did it take a couple months to kind of figure that out? Or talk us through that.
It did not happen immediately. What's funny is, and especially reading through this chapter, there is so much, and there should be, but there's so much focused on, do people want this and will people buy this? And that has, again, fingers crossed, but that's never been our core issue. We did so much work. I mean, Priyanka had a 50-page marketing playbook essentially for us to use at the time of launch. And we haven't had the opportunity to jump into 10% of it because our core issue has been that it has been supplying and being able to meet demand. And now I've forgotten your question.
I'm always more about like, when you launch the store, when did you know that financially this is going to be viable, like month 1, month 6, or kind of, did it take a while essentially?
It did take a little while. Our summer, we opened in summer of 2018. We had a beautiful studio, but a very ugly storefront at the time. We went through a process with the city of Madison, which was great. It was the facade improvement program, and we were able to overhaul our storefront, get new windows, get really pretty colored window trim. But what I'm getting at is that took place after our initial launch. So we had a pretty sad opening summer because it was just totally organic clients, people who had heard about us on Facebook. We weren't doing a ton of advertising. And if you walked by the studio, you would kind of have no idea what was going on behind the doors. So in September of 2018, we got our new storefront. We had hired a decent amount of nail artists, I think maybe 4 to 5 full-time nail artists. And that was when we really realized that we could be making money. In those days, everyone was fully busy. So this is 3 months post-open. All of our artists were fully busy, and we were turning away on average 14 appointments a day. So then we started looking at our break even in terms of full-time nail artists, because at the time, and now we're back there, we weren't in the middle of COVID, but we're back there now. At the time, if an artist was working, they were going to be fully booked. So our revenue model that had previously, had all this marketing and thought about, how much of this market can we capture? Now it was just like, how many nail artist hours can we have on the book? Because we know once they're in there, there's going to be money made. So it's kind of an inverse way of thinking about a revenue model, or at least how we'd thought about it in business school. When we initially put together our financial forecast, the assumption was just that there was an infinite amount of nail artists that would want to come work for us. And if we could capture this percentage of the market, we could obviously meet the demand. So that really turned everything on its head when we realized that, it was the other way around.
I remember that. Like you asked me, so you must have been asking pretty much everybody. Like, do you have any idea on how to get folks that can staff the salon with us? Because that seems to be our big challenge, and obviously it's not something I would know a lot about. So you're definitely looking everywhere to try and figure that out. And how did you solve that, or is it still an ongoing challenge?
We had come close to solving it pre-pandemic, like just before we finally had our numbers in a good place in terms of artists. And then we had this forced closure of about 11 weeks, and we lost a lot of our team in that process. So now we've taken a couple steps back there, and we're rebuilding the team. But over the past year, we've also added a couple different services that we do, which are just different revenue streams for us. They use different, some of our artists cross over across services, but a lot of the services we've hired new artists. So having that plus our e-commerce platform, which we started in the middle of COVID, has at least allowed us enough of these revenue streams to cover the losses that come from not being able to meet the nail demand.
Got it. And one of the concepts in this chapter is something called the service addressable market. And this is a little different than the total addressable market, which is often, what we see in the slide decks when entrepreneurs are putting together their presentations. And the idea is that, based on the kind of operations that you're setting up, that kind of dictates the true kind of market that you could really be serving. And so if you have like a mail order business, you're going to be mailing, product to people. Then essentially, if someone doesn't have an address to be mailed to, then they're not really in your serviceable addressable market, although they might meet the demographic characteristics to be in like your total addressable market. And so in your case, have there been kind of changes or tweaks to the business or modifications you've been making to kind of get it ready to scale like in a certain direction, like internal processes or your overall thinking? Priyanka.
Yes. Sorry, I'm pausing because the last year, I think, well, other than turning us on our heads, the last year has been all about systematizing operations in the studio to get it ready to be able to hand it as a package to a studio manager and say, now you're running this location and we're going to go out and scale the business and open more locations and do the same thing, wash and repeat. We're still working on those systems, but they've improved so much since we opened in 2018. We're now we used to do inventory every single week, and now inventory is done once a month, essentially. We've gotten our team on board to be able to record things that are out of stock or low, so that we're able to recognize that immediately when we go in for inventory or when Jen goes in for inventory, and be able to get everything that the studio needs to operate for the next month. So that's just like a small piece of what we're systematizing, but even Jen, I know I'm going to forget some stuff, so if you feel free to jump in.
I would say our client communication is systematized. We have a bunch of templated emails. The way the end of day reporting is done is systematized. Some of the way that we answer the phone or the way that we talk about product is systematized. We have a 170-page employee handbook now, which is honestly an accomplishment for us because we are still a very small company and we have laid the groundwork to be able to replicate this business in other places.
Yeah, we have like an array of training manuals for new hires in both the artist category and our front desk. So we've put those together over the course of the last 2.5 years. So now we know what it's like to sit behind that desk and answer the phones and the types of questions you're going to get and the types of issues that may arise. And so it's been an ongoing process to write those manuals, but they're there now so that onboarding even is a little bit more systematized and simpler.
Got it. So let's talk about the chapter itself. So when you read it, did you read through it and say like, oh, this really speaks to me and I'm happy that people are reading this? When you read through it, were you thinking like, wait a minute, this doesn't really match my experience as well? And if I had done all this stuff, it really wouldn't have been that helpful. What are your thoughts on the book, on the chapter?
I felt like a lot of it is written from a perspective of you're building a web or mobile type product. We are unique in the sense that we are building a in-person brick and mortar service. So while we did have some web testing and we've still, optimized our online booking and how we, do certain things online, but some of that just doesn't apply to us here in terms of this validation. That said, there's certainly a lot that does. I have like little notes in here. Are you attacking a serious problem or fulfilling a compelling need? And we've always had this perspective where at the end of the day, we're doing manicures here. Like we're not solving world hunger. We're not even doing like grocery delivery. This really is a vanity problem. And we recognize that it is just that. So some of this, when it comes to problem solving, you need to sort of like laugh at yourself over the fact that are there people out in the world that sit and think about how they're like dreaming of a better nail salon experience? Probably not. But we've always said that if we could attack the majority of the minor annoyances that come with like getting your nails done or visiting a nail salon, then we've won. So we're not solving this massive, problem that customers have, but we're solving a bunch of inconveniences that they've experienced.
I feel like you're helping people be happy, and what a wonderful thing. As a core thing that you're really doing. Priyanka, thoughts on the book?
No, I totally agree with Jen. As I was, I think I felt this way when I was reading it the first time too. But as I was rereading it, I was thinking this is very much a non-brick and mortar, non-service based way of approaching a startup. But again, there are so many good takeaways from the chapter as well. And I think, even just thinking about like who our customers are and are there enough customers? There's ways to measure that in our business that is not necessarily like verbatim laid out in the chapter, but I can take away like, oh, early evangelists. Yep, we have some of those. Network effect. Yep, we had a little bit of that too. And so maybe it doesn't apply directly, but there are pretty good takeaways I think that you could apply to any area of industry really.
I feel like that the authors try and address this with the little comments around, like if you're running a web business, then you think of it this way or whatever. But I almost feel like, another great book here would be like the Startup Owner's Manual. And then there's like the stamp that comes out, goes like dunk, physical location edition or something like that, right? Where it'd be really drilled in on those kind of problems and then how to think about, when do you make that leap in cost to open up that physical location and when do you not? I think that'd be really, really helpful. Other thoughts on the book, specific things that you felt you just said, like, this is like a must read or highlight, or this is something that really we do differently.
There were just a couple things that resonated with me. It's obviously been a while since I've picked up this book, or truly, especially in the past year, that's just been a whirlwind. It's been a while since we've looked at our business from a true like academic standpoint, or revisited this type of material. We've been kind of in a in like a little bit of a tsunami recently. But there were a couple things that I have here that are just little notes, that I think are important, just to call out that the customer validation hasn't gone away for us. It's not like we won Best of Madison and like we're done here. We've proved product market fit. It's more of, okay, well, if we launch these new services, would they be well received? And then now that they've launched, are they going well? We still send out, occasional surveys to customers, particularly when we have new artists or people who are doing training appointments. We're still, brides, for example, like bridal parties are something that we never even built into our initial business model. And then again, pre-COVID, but events are a serious piece of our business. And that was something that hadn't even like crossed our minds. So now we go back to, okay, just looking at brides alone, what can we validate throughout that experience of you're booking a private party? What type of contract should we have in place? How should we manage this type of booking? So as those like new customer segments emerge, there's almost an opportunity to like dive into this for each segment or use case.
And I think for each subsequent location, right?
Right.
Like it doesn't end with Madison. It's not necessarily always going to be plug and play in whatever city we go to. You have to do the same due diligence that we did in Madison with in Atlanta or in Austin, Texas, or in Nashville. There's, nuances to the right location, to pick the right location. Are the customers that we service here, is that the same customer base that's in those cities, or are we expanding to a different set of customers? And there's no wrong answer. It's more of who are the customers, where are they, and is that the right place that we should be?
So customer validation discovery is like ongoing part of the business, staying in touch with the customers and having that fidelity and thinking about it carefully. One of the last point that it was almost like a kind of passing reference in the chapter, but I think is worth diving into for just a moment, is that there is this kind of trade-off that between, raising expansion capital and then facing the bar of needing to deliver on whatever metrics are there tied to that capital. And if you're successful in doing that, you're building value over time and you can continue to raise. But if there's a stumble along the way, then that capital can really become a little bit of a challenge, because then you've raised this extra financing, you've diluted yourself with that equity, but you haven't had the corresponding like jump in value. How are you thinking about the expansion and kind of those trade-off issues around like how much do we raise and when do we do this, or do we finance this internally? Like, what are your thoughts on all this?
They go back and
you forth. Can say we're still figuring that out, John.
Yes, we are. Like Priyanka mentioned, I think pre-pandemic, our conversations were a little bit different. I'd say we're a little more, I don't want to say scared, but a little bit more hesitant now, because we had the rug sort of swept out from underneath us. We've realized, or we've sort of thought about the e-commerce side of things and the private label manufacturing side of things, and how there is potential there to, I don't know if we'd start with that and use that money to fund second locations. But that's much more of a focus now, in an interest now that we still need to dive into than, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on every new location in the meantime. We were pretty lucky and we worked hard at it, but our e-commerce business mid-pandemic, I mean, we shipped to 28 or 32 different states. So our reach there, and there are people who are repeat buyers from Florida or from Georgia or Kansas that we don't know how they heard about us. We don't know what where that's coming from, but now they're on our email list, and we're able to continue to try to engage with them and see what things they want. I think our expansion is just looking a little bit different now than we initially mapped it out.
Great. So we're coming up on time. Do you have any final parting shots or thoughts or comments for your fellow entrepreneurs and those that are thinking about going down this path?
You're thinking about opening a service-based business or one that requires employees that require a specialty. Like for us, it's, our manicurists are required to have a license. That is something that you're going to want to think about very early in your business. And how are you going to attract those people, and how are you going to keep them wanting to work for you? Where are you going to recruit from? What does your recruiting funnel look like? Because it needs to be ongoing. That is something that we did not spend any time really thinking about at the beginning stages, and we are feeling it, and we still feel it today, and it's getting better, obviously. But you don't want to be, if I'm going to actually impart some wisdom, it's don't be us 3 years from now still working through it. Do it in the very beginning, and that can be a very easy way to say to pivot your business early on.
Yeah, I would say, trust your gut, but also try not to be blinded by your own biases. There were a lot of things that we did in the early launch of our company that we thought, well, we get our nails done regularly and we would like this, so wouldn't everyone else? And that's not always true. We're like old by campus standards. So now we're like the old ladies that are trying to like have this successful nail studio catering to people who were born in like the year 2003, which is,
Wow.
you kind of need to take a step back sometimes and listen to your audience more than get down the rabbit hole that like you've created for yourself.
Yeah, because we're getting older and they're staying the same age. So
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you both for spending time with us today, and for your and congratulations on all of your success, and looking forward to seeing how your business grows over time.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for having us.